You know, it's funny, when we talk about personal growth or like self-improvement, the advice usually sounds so industrial.
Oh, absolutely. It's always about um, architecting your day or engineering a better routine.
Right, building habits, laying foundations, it's all hard hats and blueprints. We culturally treat our minds like machines.
Yeah, machines that just need the proper lines of code to run at maximum efficiency.
Exactly. But a machine is static, right? You build it once, you turn it on, and you expect it to just run flawlessly until, I don't know, a gear breaks.
Which is an exhausting way to look at human life, honestly.
It really is. And that's why the source material we have for you today is so refreshing. It takes this completely different, entirely organic approach.
Yeah, it asks you to look at your internal life, your spiritual life, not as a machine to be optimized, but as a home garden to be cultivated.
Which is just a beautiful shift in perspective. So today we are doing a deep dive into notes and excerpts from a religious address. It's specifically a sacrament meeting talk, and it outlines this 5-part framework for spiritual growth.
And it's all built around this elaborate, incredibly detailed metaphor of the home garden.
Right. So our mission today is to dig into the mechanics of this metaphor and really unpack how this author uses gardening to offer like a highly practical framework for intentional living.
But we should be really clear with you right up front. This text is deeply rooted in a specific faith tradition.
Yes, very important context. It references very specific structural concepts, things like bishops, the sacrament, and temples.
Right, which might be unfamiliar to some people listening.
Exactly. And I want to emphasize to you, the listener, that we're not taking a side or endorsing these specific religious viewpoints today.
No, not at all.
Instead, our mission is to impartially report on the ideas presented in the text and, analyze the underlying psychology of it. Because whether you belong to this faith, another faith, or no faith at all, the structural approach of treating your time as an ecosystem that needs daily tending is just incredibly compelling.
It really is a universal framework when you look closely at the psychology of it.
For sure. Okay, let's unpack this. The author breaks down this process into 5 essential elements for becoming a master of your spiritual home garden. And the very first element isn't even about digging in the dirt.
Nope, it starts in the air.
Right. It's about listening to the weather forecast.
Which, in the context of this religious address, represents seeking personal revelation and tuning in to the promptings of the Holy Spirit.
And the text gives us these really vivid examples of what this looks like in practice. It describes what it calls a sudden rainstorm.
Oh, I loved this part.
Yeah, it was an unexpected prompting this woman felt to just go visit a specific sister in her community. Like out of nowhere, just a sudden urge to connect.
Right, a positive sudden event. But then there's the negative side, the drought of regret.
Oh man, the drought of regret. It shares this story of a bishop who felt a prompting to take a certain action, but he thought to himself, well, it's late in the evening, I'll just handle it later.
Which we all do all the time.
Oh, constantly. But by ignoring that internal forecast, he missed the critical window to act. The opportunity literally dried up.
What's fascinating here is the specific methodology the author suggests for tuning into this weather. Because they advise stepping entirely away from technology to catch these, what they call pure and quiet thoughts.
Pure and quiet. I like that phrasing.
It's very intentional. And then crucially, you are supposed to immediately write those thoughts down in a dedicated revelation notebook.
Which is such a physical, tangible action for something so invisible.
Exactly. And from a psychological standpoint, the brilliance of that physical notebook is cognitive offloading.
Oh, interesting. Say more about that.
Well, when you externalize those fleeting thoughts by handwriting them on a physical page, you validate them. You signal to your own brain that this specific type of subtle information actually matters.
Right, you're telling your brain, hey, pay attention to this frequency.
Exactly. The text describes this habit as a shield that protects your garden from unseen hazards. So you aren't just letting the wind blow you around blindly, You're actively tracking the weather patterns over time.
It's sort of like, it's like turning off the noise-canceling feature on your headphones.
Yeah, well, that's a great analogy.
Thanks. Yeah, it's like if you have noise canceling on, you're in your own little bubble. But if you turn it off, you can actually hear the environment around you, the subtle cues.
You're opening yourself up to the ambient signals.
Right. But let me push back on this a little bit, though. Is it really that simple to track?
What do you mean?
I mean, how do you distinguish a genuine, pure, and quiet thought from just random everyday anxiety or a passing whim?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Like if I get a sudden urge at 11 p.m. to go check on my neighbor, Is that a divine prompting, or did I just watch way too much true crime before bed?
Well, that tension is exactly what the physical notebook is meant to resolve over time.
How so?
Think about it. If you rely solely on your internal monologue, everything feels like a chaotic swirl. Anxiety is almost always loud. It's repetitive. It's fear-based.
Oh, definitely. It's shouting at you.
Right. But the text very intentionally uses the words pure and quiet for these promptings. So by dedicating a specific notebook to this practice, you are actually training your own discernment.
Ah, I see. You're tracking the results.
Yes. You start to recognize the specific frequency of the signals that bear positive fruit when you act on them versus the signals that just spin you into a late-night panic.
That makes a lot of sense. But catching those thoughts is really only the first part of the equation, right?
Right. It's just the forecast.
Exactly. Because if you capture the rain, but your ground is completely barren or, like, covered in concrete, nothing is going to grow anyway.
No. It'll just run off.
Right. The text argues that you need a place to actually plant those seeds, and it introduces the second element. The author calls time the best soil of the garden.
And the premise here relies on a pretty stark reality. Time is a strictly limited resource.
So true.
If you do not purposefully dedicate your time to what truly matters, your temporal soil gets entirely overrun by weeds.
And the author doesn't just speak abstractly here. They actually call out the weeds by name. They specifically identify phone scrolling and wasting time in waiting rooms as these invasive species.
The modern weeds.
Yes,
Right.
the digital weeds choking our daily soil. And I think, honestly, every single person listening to this right now can relate to the weed of doom scrolling.
Oh, absolutely. It's universal.
So I'd ask you, the listener, to consider your own day for a second. What digital or mental weeds are currently choking out the good soil in your schedule?
Well, and the text offers a really highly specific proactive countermeasure for this.
What's the fix?
Instead of letting those weeds take root the absolute second you wake up, it suggests taking the very first few minutes on your phone and using them for something deeply meaningful.
Okay, so grab the phone, but do something different.
Right. The specific example the author provides is using a genealogy tool called Family Search.
Right, doing family history work instead of, checking social media feeds or the news.
Exactly. And the author makes a remarkably bold claim about this practice. They say that doing this acts like a miraculous fertilizer.
A miraculous fertilizer.
Yeah, the exact quote from the text is that 1 cup of fertilizer fills a bucket. They claim this habit actually multiplies your time and reduces your stress for the rest of the entire day.
Okay, wait, hold on. Logically, how does that actually work? Because 5 minutes spent on an app is 5 minutes gone.
Math is math, right?
Right. If I spend 5 minutes looking at my great-grandfather, I now have 5 less minutes to answer my emails or make coffee. How is my time multiplying?
Well, this is where we see a really fascinating paradox of time presented in the source material. It shifts time management completely away from a strict mathematical equation and into the realm of, like, neurochemistry and intentionality.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Think about why genealogy specifically works here as a fertilizer compared to doom scrolling. Doom scrolling puts your brain into an immediate state of ego-driven anxiety and hyporeactivity.
Right, you wake up and you're immediately looking at threats or comparing yourself to influencers or reading about global crises.
It's a deficit mindset.
Mm.
But genealogy does the exact opposite. It instantly connects you to this vast, multi-generational web.
It shrinks the ego.
Yes. It replaces that immediate anxiety with a profound sense of historical rootedness.
So you are starting the day by anchoring yourself to something permanent rather than something fleeting and stressful.
Precisely. If you start your day with a deliberate, value-driven action that fosters connection, you set a psychological baseline of abundance and focus.
Oh, I see. So you end up navigating the rest of your day more efficiently because you aren't operating out of panic.
Exactly. The fertilizer isn't magically creating a 25-hour day. The fertilizer is the profound mindset shift that dictates how you spend the remaining hours.
That is so powerful. But, okay, even if you have the most nutrient-rich, weed-free soil in the world and you're perfectly attuned to the weather,
The garden can still fail.
it totally can. If the physical structures around it are a chaotic junkyard, the environment just won't support the growth.
Which brings us to the third element of the framework, maintaining a tidy field.
This section of the text is so interesting because it links physical order directly to divine destiny.
It really does.
The theological argument presented is that God is pure and orderly. Therefore, humans, who, according to this doctrine, are literally destined to become like God, must also learn to establish and maintain physical order in their personal environments.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The text elevates the most mundane, eye-rolling chores into literal cosmic training.
Cosmic training.
Yes, making your bed, cleaning your room, organizing a desk. The author is suggesting these aren't just annoying tasks to check off a to-do list. They are physical manifestations of your divine potential.
You're practicing for something huge.
Right, you are training to be worthy heir to something much larger. But let me ask you this. Does physical clutter actually block mental or spiritual clarity? Or is this just an exercise in building personal discipline? It's a great question.
Because, I mean, we all know brilliant, deeply spiritual, highly productive people whose workspaces look like a paper factory literally exploded.
Oh, I know a few of those people myself.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is an incredibly powerful psychological reframing technique.
How so?
Well, it bridges the absolute macro, right? The philosophical goal of becoming a divine creator with the absolute micro.
Straighten your blanket in the morning.
Exactly. And regarding the clutter, it really comes down to cognitive load.
Okay, cognitive load.
Yeah, for the vast majority of human beings, chaotic visual environments drain passive mental energy.
Your brain is constantly processing the mess, even if you're trying to ignore it.
Right. But more than just freeing up cognitive bandwidth, the text argues that the act of choosing to create order in your physical space trains the mind's agency.
Oh, so it's the choice that matters.
Yes. It's about practicing the characteristics of the person you are trying to become. By tying a massive eternal goal to a micro-habit, everyday annoyances are transformed into immediate, accessible growth opportunities.
You're proving to yourself that you can bring order to chaos. Practicing mastery on a small scale.
Exactly.
All right, so our garden has a tidy physical layout. The temporal soil is prepped and weeded, and we are listening to the weather.
Everything is ready.
Now we need a mechanism to actually distribute the water to the plants. Which brings us to the fourth element of the home garden, functioning as a funnel.
A funnel, or like a watering can.
Right. The core idea is that a garden requires life-giving water distributed equally, and we are meant to be the mechanism for that distribution. We are supposed to be a funnel for love and service to others.
And the source material shares some incredibly moving anecdotes to illustrate this.
It really does. There's that story of someone feeling that sudden weather forecast, right? A prompting to just give sunflowers to a woman named Angela who is quietly suffering.
Such a beautiful, simple act.
Yeah. And then there's a much heavier, more profound example of a family feeling immense gratitude and peace, even after the tragic death of their young child. And the text says this was entirely because of the service they engaged in toward others during their grief.
Which is incredible. And the text emphasizes that being this funnel doesn't require grand, exhausting gestures. It can literally just be spending fun, undivided time together with someone who needs connection.
So what does this all mean for us practically? Because when I visualize the word funnel, I picture a tool that water just passes completely through.
Right, it doesn't hold anything.
Exactly. The funnel itself doesn't retain a single drop. So if you are constantly pouring out your time, your empathy, your emotional energy to water everyone else's plants, doesn't that lead straight to compassion fatigue?
You'd think it would lead to total burnout.
Right. If you give everything away, you're just an empty plastic pone by the end of the day.
Well, that is the logical assumption if you're stuck in a transactional mindset. But the text makes a really counterintuitive claim about how this specific spiritual ecosystem operates.
Okay, I'm listening.
In this framework, acting as a funnel actually nourishes the funnel itself. The fundamental shift is realizing you aren't generating the water.
Oh, you're not the source.
Exactly. You are not the source. You are just allowing the water to flow through you.
You're just a conduit.
Yes. And by participating in that flow, by being the instrument of service, you actually receive the greatest joy and revelation.
That makes a lot of sense. When you focus entirely on alleviating someone else's suffering, like bringing those sunflowers to Angela, you break your own cycle.
You break the neurological cycle of ruminating on your own pain. Because grief and anxiety, they naturally force us to look inward, right? They trap us in this echo chamber of our own distress.
Yeah, you get stuck in your own head.
But funneling compassion outward shatters that echo chamber.
Yeah.
The act of water passing through keeps the funnel itself cool, clean, and purposeful.
Wow, that completely reframes service from a depleting obligation to like an energizing flow state. But to sustain that kind of outward selfless watering without the garden slowly deteriorating, I mean, you need a deep structural foundation, right? Because the flow of water over time naturally washes away topsoil.
It does. The baseline nutrients deplete over time.
Which brings us to the fifth and final element in the text, soil improvement.
Because regular watering and daily weeding simply aren't enough to keep a garden thriving over the long haul.
Right, so the text introduces this concept of relying on sacred covenants and the power of the temple as this necessary foundational soil improvement.
It mentions the sacrament, which is a weekly religious ritual in this faith.
Yeah, and it urges the listener not just to sit there passively while it happens, but to deeply ponder the words of the sacrament prayers as if they were their own personal commitments.
Which is a very active form of participation.
Very. And then it talks about the temple. It describes the temple as a dedicated physical place where a heavenly language is spoken.
I love that phrase, heavenly language.
It's beautiful. It's a place where you should go actively expecting to receive revelation, which then yields a healthy, new sense of peace.
Right.
But for a listener who might not use this specific religious vocabulary, how do we translate the mechanics of covenants and sacraments into the psychology of soil amendment?
Well, this raises an important question about how formal commitments and dedicated environments actually dictate our internal state.
Okay, unpack that.
Psychologically speaking, a covenant is not just a rule. It is a deeply binding reciprocal commitment that anchors your identity.
It grounds you.
Right. And the sacrament, in this context, acts as a weekly psychological renewal of that commitment. Think about it in agriculture.
Okay.
If you don't periodically pause the harvesting process to physically amend and improve the soil, the crops will eventually fail. It doesn't matter how much water or sunlight they get.
Because you have to restore what the growth process consumed.
Exactly. In human terms, without a deliberate, structured practice of returning to your core commitments, your emotional resilience slowly loses its nutrients.
Ah, I see.
The text points to the necessity of designated sacred spaces and formal rituals to literally force that deliberate pause. Because, let's face it, modern life is almost entirely devoid of sacred space.
Oh, completely. Everywhere we go is monetized, it's noisy, it's constantly demanding our attention.
Yes.
Having a physical location that is completely walled off from the noise of the regular world feels like a radical act of preservation.
Radical is the perfect word for it.
Like, no commerce, no smartphone notifications, no social posturing, just a place where an entirely different language of stillness and intention is spoken.
Right. Rituals and sacred spaces recalibrate the baseline of the mind. They strip away the immediate urgencies of the day and force you to evaluate the long-term health of your roots.
That's beautifully said. And the text concludes that integrating these 5 steps clarifies exactly who you are becoming. And it opens a continuous, sustainable line of communication with the divine, or, the highest version of your own intuition.
It really is a complete architectural approach to the soul.
Brilliantly mapped onto the slow, patient rhythms of nature. Okay, let's quickly recap this masterclass in spiritual gardening.
Let's do it.
1. Listen to the weather forecast by capturing those pure, quiet thoughts in a dedicated revelation notebook to train your discernment.
Love it.
2. Cultivate the best soil by treating your time intentionally. Like weeding out that ego-driven doom scrolling first thing in the morning and replacing it with something deeply connecting.
Getting that fertilizer in early.
Exactly. 3. Keep a tidy field, recognizing that creating physical order, even just making your bed, might just be cosmic training for a much larger destiny.
Practicing mastery.
Right. 4. Act as a funnel, letting service to others flow through you to break the cycle of your own pain. And finally, 5. Engage in regular soil improvement through dedicated rituals and sacred spaces to renew your foundational nutrients.
For you, the listener, the ultimate takeaway here is intensely practical. Even if you operate entirely outside of the specific religious framework presented in the source material, the underlying methodology is universally sound.
Absolutely.
Treating your internal life and your time not as a rigid machine to be hacked and optimized, but as a living, breathing garden requiring deliberate, daily, patient cultivation, well, that fundamentally changes how you respond to failure.
Because a machine that fails is broken.
Exactly. But a garden that struggles just needs a different kind of care. It completely changes how you value your time and how you view your own potential for growth.
Because a garden doesn't grow on a schedule, right? It grows in seasons.
Such a good point.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. The source material talks beautifully about treating your life, your habits, and your time like a garden in the natural world.
Responding to external weather, Dealing with the soil you've been given.
Right. But what if we took that metaphor just one conceptual step further? What if we viewed the inside of our minds as an enclosed ecosystem that requires its own specific curated weather?
Oh, wow. Taking the role of the climate creator rather than just the observer.
Think about it. If you could artificially control the internal climate of your own mind for just 1 week, if you could reach up and manually adjust the heat of your ambition, or, dial up the gentle rain of your empathy.
Or create a sudden frost to kill off a bad habit.
Yes, a sharp frost to finally kill off a weed that's been choking your progress. What conditions would you set to force your most stubborn, beautiful ideas to finally bloom?
Now that is a question worth pulling out a fresh notebook for.
Truly. Thank you for spending your time with us today exploring these concepts. We hope you take these tools and keep cultivating your own garden, whatever that looks like for you. We'll catch you next time.